So, Jack, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This is actually, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. This is
Jack Gjesvold. I'm excited to be on here. We've followed each other for a long time on Instagram, and it's one of those things. I don't know. You follow all these people on Instagram, from the South versus North, wherever it may be, and I don't know. You feel like you get to know them, and then I've never had a conversation with y'all, and so
Right.
I'm excited to talk with y'all.
It's really fun to follow someone, and I know you've experienced this. It's really fun to follow someone for a while, and then you're like, actually, you might comment on a video or someone's story, but it's cool to then take that further into a collaboration because, I want people who listen to the podcast and follow our network to follow Jack because I love the content Jack puts out, and I'm just a farmer. I just like watching it, and so and then it's cool to connect with Jack and Jack's audience because Jack's audience is in a different, region. We talked about regions of agriculture. Then I see it all. Like, I've never seen rice farming ever. And there's just so many areas in agriculture, and we live in a really cool time where we can do so much. We can reach so many people and make, especially the very impactful areas, the non-farming community, aware of what we do the day to day. Tell the story of the American family farm.
It's
Anyway.
really cool to see the social media aspect of it, how it's grown over the years. Because, even just 4 years ago when I started this, it's very, 4 years ago, there weren't a lot of people on social media, at least with
Sure.
farming. People would post pictures of high school graduation and stuff, but not, our goal is to tell farmers stories through social media. And so it's really cool to see how somebody with a camera, you, me, everybody else taking pictures on farms, they're helping to show agriculture and tell farmers stories. It's really cool to see.
Absolutely. And it has helped, at least in our network, of just talking to guys from all over the place. It's really neat because it makes you appreciate different walks of life that different people have. The struggles of guys trying to beat a 5-year drought in the South, South for me, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Texas, Western Kansas, Nebraska, all these guys are fighting this. And then you go to another area and there are guys that have a whole different set of struggles that they're working with. And then you get to celebrate each other's successes as well. Not everyone celebrates other people's success as well, and that's unfortunate. But that's a whole different issue. Anyway, but Jack, I just want to tell me your story on agriculture. You didn't come from agriculture. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you got to where you're at today, and then I want to know, where's Jack going? Where's Jack want to go? So walk me through that. If I randomly throw my hand up, stop for a second because I got a question.
That's a loaded question. So
Yeah.
I started, I guess, 4 years ago, and I didn't grow up in a farm family. Both of my parents, they're either engineers or help work with engineers, and so farming was completely out of their wheelhouse. And I grew up in a town where farming wasn't the main industry. We have a lot of military presence, a lot of engineers, and farming. A lot of people don't know about farming. And so
Where
in
are
high
you
school,
from, Jack? I should start
I'm from
there.
Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay.
And so it's North Alabama. We're 10 to 15 minutes south of Tennessee.
Got it.
And in high school, I was in a church youth group with a kid named Spencer, who's now my college roommate, and his family had a farm 20 minutes outside of town. And he'd always talk about they were harvesting beans and, planting and all that stuff, and it sounded really cool. And so I drove out there one day and took pictures, and I didn't know any of them but Spencer. And that kind of snowballed into, it was right at wheat harvest, and so it kind of snowballed into, here, come out and take pictures during wheat harvest. And one thing after another, it kind of just fell into place of me taking pictures out there and going out there. and I ended up working out there for a summer because I wanted to learn more about what farmers deal with and what it was like to work on a farm, because I had never worked on a farm. And through that, it kind of got me connected with Spencer's uncle is Chad Henderson, and with Extreme Ag, and
Yeah.
so I got connected with him, and they needed pictures for Extreme Ag and some of the sponsors and stuff like that, and so it kind of snowballed into, I guess, what it is now. But it really just started out of, I wanted to see what they were doing, and there was a need for photography. There weren't, the companies could send somebody to take pictures, but was it worth it to send a photographer to take pictures of Chad pouring a chemical into a sprayer? And so it was kind of just right place, right time for me. And it's opened up a lot of doors. And it's a really cool, what started as just like I take pictures and I want to post them. I don't want them to sit on my hard drive for the rest of my life. It's turned it into something really cool with, I don't know, the whole goal is just to tell farmers stories and get their story out there, because a lot of people don't know where their food comes from.
Sure.
And I feel like it's our responsibility to show them, or use social media and get that out there.
Well, and there's a tremendous. It's very easy for people to say that the farmer is the bad guy. Farmers just continually spray things on their crops and they're killing people. We hear about it in so many aspects of life. The farmer is the guy that takes the blame when oftentimes it's just a lot of misconception. Like people truly don't know. I have not met a farmer who wants to leave things worse than what he found it. I have not met a farmer who wants to go and just do things to their crop for completely unnecessary reasons. Now, sometimes we'll go out and do things to try something, and then do we learn it was unnecessary? Yes, but I don't think anyone loads a sprayer or a side dress bar or something and just is like, this probably won't do anything and it's only hurting something, so I'm going to go do it. I haven't met one. Honestly, I hope I don't meet one. But
And it's cool to hear, because working with farmers, people growing up on a farm, everything's normal. During
Yes.
harvest you're busy, during planting you're busy. The terminology, all that's normal. But coming from a family that didn't farm or doesn't farm, it's cool to hear that perspective and explain it to, my family or friends who don't, work in the ag industry. Because I'll come home, and being that my parents are engineers, they, the technology and all that aspects, they find it interesting, and they'll start asking questions about the technology in these machines, or how a combine works and stuff like that. And a lot of people don't know, they might see it on the side of the road harvesting, but they don't know all that goes into it, or how much technology is in a sprayer. And so it's cool to show other people, farmers aren't, they don't have a pitchfork and they're, all they do is, turn hay. Like you almost need an IT degree to work on these machines.
yes, we've talked about it before, that a farmer is probably one of the most diversified, skilled individuals left in today's workforce. Generally a farmer is good at mechanics. He's good at, chemistry. You have to be good at chemistry. You have to be good at,
Just the business aspect.
The business a business side, marketing. You have, having employees anymore because the farms have grown in size. You've got, agronomy, just for your crops. You've got, dude, the list just goes on of all the different fields that a farmer, not all farmers, but what farming is moving into. All these areas that you have to be good at to just keep a business running, and like you said, the pitchfork and the overalls is still a very, well, he's got a tractor and he's got a combine and, he plants and he cuts, but man, that disconnect that people have, it's fun. Dude, I really enjoy taking people out. I live I guess on a podcast, it's hard, you can't. It's hard to explain to people, but on the other side of the road, I've got a field, and I enjoy taking people during the summer. We enjoy having families over. I got a wife and a couple of kids, and so you've always got kids and people coming over. I'd like taking them over there and just walking through a field with them and showing them things. It's like, hey, this is where this plant's at. And hey, let's dig this up. Let's look at some. See, this is happening for this reason. And people are just like so mind blown that, just by the smallest of things. But it's, and then they start to, you can see the light bulbs come on that they're like, I totally had the wrong idea about this. And, what's fun is actually taking the shields off the side of a combine and showing someone what happens, because they see it go in, and then they see stuff thrown out the back and then some grain in the bin. But you actually show them the process, the rotor, the sieves, the cleaning, grain return, all the functions of the combine. And they're really like, I had no idea it was this complicated. It's like, yeah, this is why these things cost $500,000 to $1 million.
Well, that's another thing. It's just talking about the monetary value of everything.
Yes.
People, you see news articles all the time, farmer, the inflation and, blah, blah, blah. But people, they don't realize how expensive combines are or sprayers. And that's one of the things that, it's one thing to read about it in a news article, but until you get on the farm or you start sharing their stories for other people to see, they aren't going to realize what farmers are dealing with. You can only get so much stuff from the news.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And even then, it's probably not the side that needs to be portrayed.
That's right.
Yeah. But anyway, so you didn't come from agriculture. That's how you got introduced into agriculture. Do you have a goal? Like, this is what I want to do. This is my goal. This is my mission, my trajectory. What does Jack want to do in the world of agriculture?
I'd love to continue this photography and marketing stuff with farms. I'm going to school at Mississippi State, and so I'm a junior, and I'm getting a degree in forestry. And so I want to, which is totally different from what I'm doing right now, but it's I want to do habitat management stuff. There's a lot of going into school. I didn't know about.
Are you a deer hunter, Jack?
A little bit. Surprisingly, I don't. Everybody thinks I love to hunt since I'm doing this. I'm really not a big hunter. I would much rather go plant food plots and manage the property than hunt any day of the week.
Man, we're going to be good friends.
But I kind of
friends.
I didn't know about consultants or, seed salesmen or stuff like that. And so going into college, I didn't really know there was a way into the ag industry outside of, your family owning a farm.
Sure.
And so I kind of decided, all right, well, I want to work outside. And so I did forestry. And, there's a big need all over the country, but especially in Mississippi with people who made their money elsewhere who will basically hire you to manage the property with, they want to kill 180-inch deer, or they want to, kill ducks, whatever it may be. And so I kind of found that and went that route. But the closer I get to graduation, the more I'm kind of thinking, maybe I can just do Timber Solutions, full time. And so, I don't know. There's a lot of aspects that go into that with, benefits and, working for yourself and if you can make that work. But I don't know. It'd be really cool to do this full time because there's a big need for it.
Oh, absolutely. So this is fascinating to me because I've done a fair amount of work in the outdoor industry, in the outdoor space, in the food plot world, so on and so forth. And so I'm very passionate about hunting, but I enjoy the food plot and the habitat management side more than sitting in a tree stand. I get bored sitting in a tree stand anymore. Yeah. And so one of my passions is really getting how can we grow the best food plot to then be the healthiest source possible for the wildlife that I'm shooting for. Anyway, side tangent. Sorry.
Well, and I think that it's really cool to connecting the ag and the food plot aspect.
Yeah, absolutely.
and that's kind of why I got into this forestry stuff, because with working on a farm and all the chemistry and fertilizer and soil health and all the stuff that you learn working on a farm, a lot of food plotters, who they might have 100 acres, they aren't thinking about that stuff necessarily for a 5-acre food plot. But
Sure.
I don't know, that mindset from the farm, I think it's really neat when you bring that to the food plot side.
It is, and the food plotter has so much to learn from the farmer. We did a podcast about this not very long ago, where there's this disconnect between agriculture and the outdoorsman, where the outdoorsman wants to create habitat and no, it was a newsletter. I wrote a newsletter about this. Wants to do all this, and then the farmer wants to. You see the farmer clearing land, and you see the farmer, mowing waterways. It's a diverse. It's very opposite goals a lot of times, not all the time. And it was basically what I went to in the newsletter was everyone needs to, at the beginning, everyone's got a different set of goals. And what I do on my property is Josh Pretzer's agenda and Josh Pretzer's set of goals. What Jack does on his property is Jack's agenda and Jack's set of goals. Fill in the blank, whatever it might be. And so it's really easy to sit and point fingers at someone and say, that guy's messing up by doing X, Y, and Z. Where you don't know that guy's story. You don't know that guy's intentions. You don't know that guy's goals. I guarantee that person has something to teach you that you don't know. You just didn't ask about it. And so we so oftentimes we'll sit here and we'll say that someone is doing a bad job, or rag on someone when we just don't have that conversation. And that's in the world of agriculture, there's so much opportunity, and this is happening to have these conversations of, I do this because X, Y, Z. And I'm like, man, the article went, how do we affect actual change that we want to see when it's, man, if you just focus on what you're doing on your property and maximizing the change to the best of your benefit.
Hey guys, Ben and Josh here. We've been doing a blog once a month, kind of help us express out exactly how we work through problems on a monthly basis. And
It's pretty real life. It's dealing with real life problems
yeah.
on the farm. Typically, it's a vent session in short form. So, you want to check it out? Links in the description. It doesn't leave you much time to rag about other people and what they're doing, And I encourage people. I'm like, man, if someone's doing something, go ask them, like, with a genuine, like, desire to know why they're doing something instead of an accusatory approach, because they might actually know something you don't know, and they're a step ahead of you in developing something that is a similar outcome of what you're shooting for. But anyway.
Well, you can learn a lot just asking questions. And
yeah.
Coming from somebody who never worked in the ag industry, going out to the farm back home, I asked Chad so many questions, and I still ask him a lot of questions with the research stuff, but even just basic stuff, you can watch YouTube videos, but you can't learn stuff that goes on at a farm unless you're at the farm. And so just being in the field with these farmers, whether you're in a rice field or in a cotton field or whatever it may be, you can learn so much by just asking questions. And because they've been doing it for their whole life, you'll learn way more from them than you will sitting in a classroom a lot of times.
Yes. Well, it's funny because I'm thinking of a certain instance. The no-tillers are going to cringe, but there was a guy out west, and he actually hooked up a chisel plow to chisel a piece of ground. And I asked why. He said it's so the ground doesn't blow. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Worked ground blows. He says, no, out here in this soil type, it's very sandy. I mean, he's like, if there is no barrier between the wind and the dirt, it will just blow and blow and blow and blow and blow. And I was like, okay, I don't understand why you're working it. He said, I'm working it with the chisel plow because the chisel plow creates chunks. And I'm like, okay. He's like, have you ever tried to blow a bowling ball around, or a chunk of rock? And I'm like, no. And he's like, these chunks will actually catch a lot of the dust and the blow sand, and the chunk won't blow. It will actually hold your dirt in place. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, this was not an experiment. It didn't do this farm wide. It was just a very selective on this field and this field, because these two had a tendency to, couldn't get a cover crop established because of lack of rainfall. It was dry land ground, so they couldn't irrigate a cover crop up. And so it's steps of how did they work through these problems. And it was that, and dude, by golly, that field didn't blow. And then they did get some rain. They worked it down real quick and planted it, and away it went. And so it's just adaptability, but just driving by, I would have probably been like, what an idiot for working his ground, when it's dry out and there's no rain. He's going to lose his topsoil. Whereas he actually had a very valid reason for what he was doing based on experience of trial and error. And so that's something we promote all the time. And I just have an answer for what you're doing. And this is a rabbit trail, but Aaron's giving me this. We don't have enough time. Having an answer for why we do things, always have a why. Anyway, but so that's really neat. So I asked you before, do you have, and I didn't hope I haven't, I don't know the answer yet, but working with the people in agriculture that you have and visiting with people, is there anyone that sticks out in your mind as someone that was like, man, that guy is just, I don't know, a very influential person in the world of agriculture based on Jack's experience in agriculture?
I would say probably Chad Henderson, and a close second would be Matt Miles, just because they do. I started out with Chad Henderson taking pictures. He was the first farmer I ever started taking pictures with. And obviously I've learned a lot from him being in the field. I've worn him out with questions. But him and Matt Miles have both, I don't know, they do such a good job of putting themselves out there and teaching the next generation and, showing the trials that they're doing. It's really cool to, and I've kind of built Timber Solutions around this, but it's really cool to surround yourself with people who are trying new things and they aren't afraid to, step out and, the comfort zone.
Right.
And they've both done a really good job at that. And it's cool to see. And obviously I still work with them, but it's cool to see where we started and then where, I guess how life, takes you, I guess.
It takes us places we never saw coming. I follow Chad. And I enjoy watching the guys at Extreme Ag. I haven't met the guys at Extreme Ag. I'm sure I will someday, maybe at Commodity Classic. But yeah. There's been this, and I think this is a shift in agriculture that's happening right now, where people used to take things that worked and held them very close and didn't talk about it, didn't let it out of the bag. But we're at a time in agriculture now, it's a very unique time where, man, people are willing to share things. People are just tired of the whole, got to keep it secret type things. And there are things I'm not telling anybody, mainly because it might not work. And I don't want someone to try it and tell, hey, man, this was complete lunacy and at the beginning, and it actually found something that might have, worked in my situation on my farm. But it's this unique time in agriculture where I'm just talking. I mean, you kind of hit on it there, where guys are willing to be vulnerable and talk about their operations and talk about what they're doing and what they're working on, what is working, what isn't working, because, the American farmer it's like the last frontiersman is still what it feels like. He's the last guy. He's the one that's blamed for everything. He's the one that is assumed to be the most unintelligent person in the room. Like you said, the pitchfork and the overalls. Whereas, man, the American farmer today that's lasted this long has probably a very unique and developed skill set in a lot of areas that people don't appreciate. And, especially people ask, we did a series the other day with a couple of farmers right here, good friends of mine, and man, just the ability to talk to someone about what you're going through. It may not be an application on a crop. It might just be life, man. It's like, hey, how did you and your this is one. How did you and your wife handle harvest with kids? You know, it's like, because we're really struggling right now where I'm gone for 4 weeks in a combine and the wife's home taking care of the children. And how did that, how did you work through that in your marriage? How did you work through that with your employees? How did you work through that with your children? And those are conversations. It doesn't have to be about nitrogen on corn. It really doesn't, man. We'll always be talking about changing nitrogen on corn. We've talked about nitrogen on corn since corn became a thing, and we're still talking about it, So there's a broad area of topics that farmers can talk about in areas that they need help in, And it's okay. It's cool to talk to farmers about, things outside of just what's growing in the field because I don't know. Those are really impactful areas.
It's cool to show, show the human aspect of farming because you're right. I mean, you can show, and, a lot of people do a great job of showing, the technique or, this application helped this or whatever. But it's cool to show, and that's kind of what I've tried to focus on because I think my audience, I try and create content for the people who are not in the ag industry because I don't have anything to teach farmers. I mean, I'm a 21-year-old, didn't grow up on a farm, whereas...
You say that.
Whereas the people that I'm trying to connect with are, the people who think their food comes from a grocery store and they don't have any aspect of what a farmer is or, what farmers do. And it's really cool to get these farmers on camera. And even if they are talking about something, that they're doing to help with water conservation in the Delta or, showing how their rice, starts, from seed to harvest. It's cool to see that aspect and show people that aspect. Because you're right. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to teach them, you need to make this application on rice at this time. But it's really cool to show people, this is what farmers deal with. This is every day for them.
Yeah. Would you say that most of your audience is non-farmer? Do you know if is there any way to gauge that?
I don't have a number. I wish I did, but I would say probably 60-40 with 60% aren't necessarily farmers. Now they might have an ag background, but they aren't still working on a farm.
Sure.
Because I have a lot of farmers that follow me. They think, the content is cool and it's cool to see drone videos of tractors. But I try and
it's very
make
addictive.
Yeah. But I try and make because I mean, if you look on social media, there's so many people posting videos of tractors, farm kids or, other people just doing it for work. And it's really cool. And I'm glad so many people are doing it. But to separate yourself, you have to do something different. And the creating content and educating people not in ag is really what I enjoy because you're teaching people where their food comes from. I mean, or where their cotton sheets come from. I mean, the cotton and that aspect is even cooler because it's our area, the South and, obviously other places grow cotton, but it's mainly, Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama. And so it's cool to show that to people who aren't on the farm every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's so crucial. It's so crucial to be advocating for the consumer base. It's a consumer base. I mean, there is truly a gap between the farmer and the consumer because I don't harvest my crops and put it in bags and then people come and buy it out of my shop and take it home to eat it. There is a drawn out process there. And so, it's obviously farm to table is becoming much more popular. It's a booming thing. And I hope it just, explodes. I really do. Because, and as this advocacy for reconnecting back to the farm happens, I think we're going to just see a constant rise in that, which is good because people can then be like, oh man, it's, $20 for a jar of honey. I don't know. My wife buys honey and she's very intentional about where she buys her honey from. But, instead of like, it's $20, that's, it's cheaper. Hang on, bud. Sorry.
No, you're good.
People have a $20 bottle of honey and they're like, it's $20 for this, but if you know that the person that grew it is where their bees are, their process behind taking care of it and in everything, dude, it's value of what you've got. If I know how a guy is raising his beef, and I know what that cow's eating, I know where it's at, I know it's like, the practices, the cost of that and my concern for cost rapidly goes down because of my appreciation for how the job is done,
Well, and it's just like with rice in Arkansas. There's a company that I was looking at earlier today that buys rice from the Delta and then they manufacture it and sell it themselves. And it's cool. People want to know where their food comes from, and it's really cool to know. All right, I bought this rice. Sure, it might have cost a little more, but it came from Arkansas. It came from a family farm. Whatever it may be. It's cool to know. All right, American agriculture. This is coming straight from a American farm.
Absolutely. And maybe not everyone can afford that, but I don't know, man. It's eating healthy and eating intentional isn't as expensive as people think it is because you're going to get me started on quality of food. But because the better foods you get, the less food you need to live.
Yeah.
So you don't have to buy as much. But we only got a couple of minutes left. But we don't have enough time left because I could talk for quite some time. I love these conversations. Hopefully this isn't the last one we do. The next one, hopefully we get to collaborate in person. That's the goal if everything works out well.
I appreciate you having me on. I love talking about family farms and how we can use social media to do good, because there's a lot of people talking about how bad social media is, and it's, and if used wrongly it can be, but like anything, if you use it right, it can be a benefit to your business and just to the ag industry as a whole.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Don't be afraid to share your story. That's what I tell people. People say, I don't do anything interesting enough that people would find it interesting. I said, I bet you do. Let me walk with you for 10 minutes in your life, and I'll probably start asking you, be like, well, yeah, that's cool. Things we take for granted. Things we take for granted because we're used to them, other people would find fascinating. Yep. But Jack, if people want to follow Jack, where do they go?
I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn at Timber Solutions. And so you can find me on all the social media platforms. Yep. But timber.solutions is where you can find me.
Got it. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, man. I really do. I look forward to seeing where, 5 years down the road, where's Jack at? And because it's like I said, the door is wide open. The door is wide open for this kind of opportunity and avenues in the world of agriculture. Whether it's rice, corn, wheat, timber. We talked about, you're going to school for timber management, but man, it's wide open, and I think it will continue to be that way. And people's appreciation for agriculture will continue to grow, hopefully. And it's cool that there are people out there that are very passionate about seeing it grown in a positive light, a positive manner. Yeah. We only get one shot at this in a lifetime, so
that's right.
We may as well
make it worth it.
We make it worth it. Have a good time while we're doing it, and make the biggest impact while we can while we're here. So. Anyway,
that's right.
Jack, thank you for your time. Like I said,
thank
guys, you can look up Jack on Instagram. I follow him on Instagram. I followed him on Instagram way before we even talked. Aaron made this.
It was years
collaboration.
ago.
It was a long time ago. Yeah, I was like, dude, that is one dope drone video. That's cool. Like you said, farmers are addicted to drone footage. But anyway, thank you for your time. Timber Solutions on, and we'll link you in our stories and whatnot, and then hopefully connect up with you in person here soon. And who knows? We're just have a good time with it.
That's right. You never know where it could go.
Who knows? Jack, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate
Thank you.
you. Keep it up. Don't let off the gas.
I appreciate it. Thank y'all for having me.
You bet. All right. We'll see you, man. Guys, thanks for watching the content so far. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got all the full-length podcasts, other video information, tutorials on there. Also on all the major podcast platforms and social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. So if you like this, go ahead and check more out on all those platforms.